I'm very patriotic. Um, I I volunteered to join the Marines, and I volunteered to go to Vietnam. I fought in the bloodiest Marine campaign of the entire war, and I was a helicopter pilot flew 269 combat missions. My aircraft was hit by ground fire on 4 missions. I then fought on the ground with the 1st Marine Division. And during one of the 70 patrols, combat patrols that I made, my radio men were both killed and I was wounded while we were attacking and trying to rescue a surrounded Marine outpost. I'm very pro-American. I actually was a part of NATO and was prepared to die in Germany to defend against an attack by the Soviet Union. But I do not feel, Russia is not the Soviet Union at all. People don't understand that because the media has not made it clear. But Russia is not a communist state. Soviet Union was a communist state.
The illusion of Russian and Chinese aggression around the world. You'll hear this repeated many, many times that, any day, Russia is going to take over the entire world. China's taking over the world. They're doing all this stuff. If you look at the number of foreign bases between the U.S. and the U.K., we have about 900 overseas military bases where we have troops stationed in foreign countries. The total bases of the Russians and the Chinese, about 35 in total. China only has 5 overseas bases compared to the 900 or so US, UK. We've created this bizarre illusion because the deep state, the war industrial complex, must have enemies. You cannot manufacture weapons when you don't have enemies. And so we create this illusion that they're coming to get us. They're on our doorsteps. And the fact of the matter is that China is out to make a buck. They want money. The Belt and Road Initiative is very important, but they have a different paradigm. Our paradigm is we go into a country, we set up NGOs, we take over, the government by coup. If we can't, then we just bomb the place to smithereens half the time. And you compare that with the foreign policy of China, which is you go in, you work with whatever government is there. You're not judgmental, but you make hard business decisions. You make investments. And I think for people who are comparing the foreign aid paradigm of the U.S. and China, they're saying, my likelihood of surviving is much higher if I follow the Chinese paradigm. So we need to just get away from this feeling that we have to constantly be at war with the entire world. Great Britain has the 21-mile English Channel that separates it from Europe, and that 21 miles has kept it quite safe from invasion over many, many centuries. There have been a couple of exceptions, and the Vikings came in and different things, bigger ones than that. But in any event, they're basically safe. 21 miles of ocean. You look at us. We've got 5,000, 6,000 miles of ocean separating us from the nearest threats that we perceive. So we probably have less reason to be militaristic than any great nation on earth. And yet here we are. Our budget is, the last I checked, it was as large as the next largest 11 defense budgets of the biggest defense spenders in the world. So we cut a single check to Ukraine that is as big as the entire military budget of Russia for a year. So we need to escape from this illusion that they're out to get us, because they're not out to get us. There is nothing aggressive either in the policy of China or of Russia, and the only aggression is with the U.S., UK, the NATO countries, which, I look at the history of the wars of the Russian Federation. You have the tiny war in Georgia. You have the war in Syria, which they didn't get involved in until 4 years after the terrorists had been there. And then finally, at the last moment, they agreed to go in at the request of Syria because ISIS and al-Qaeda threatened to overwhelm the country. Very reluctant, somewhat limited involvement in Syria. And now you have the situation in Ukraine. You compare that to our situation where we've fought multiple wars against Iraq. We fought in Somalia, we fought in Bosnia, we fought in Haiti, we fought in Kosovo, Afghanistan, Yemen, Libya, Uganda, Syria. I probably missed half a dozen wars that we fought. We fight everywhere. You can literally have a soldier who retires with 30 years active service in the U.S. Army, and he will retire and never have served a single day when the United States was not invading and occupying some country. So to compare that with the situation with Russia and China, where has China fought? Who have they invaded? They've had a couple little border disputes, but that's it. They don't invade people. We invade people. So we need to get away from this illusion. If we could ever break away from the illusion that they're out to get us, which is totally false, then we could start chopping back on our defense budget. World tensions could reduce, and we could get back to making cell phones or whatever we do for a living, and have a genuine economy that wasn't based on killing people in foreign countries. That's what we ought to do.
Now, one of the things that I've seen claimed that has been particularly irritating to me because of my experience with Syria. I have been in Aleppo City. Aleppo City is the biggest city in Syria, or it was at least before the war began. And there was a tremendous battle. Some call it the Stalingrad of the Syrian war, which is not a bad comparison. It was a terribly bitter battle that went on from 2012 until 2016. In the course of urban combat, any forces that are fighting are forced to destroy buildings. Buildings are blown down on a massive scale. And this happens anytime that you have urban combat. So I have walked the streets of Aleppo while combat was still in progress. I have looked across through a slit in the sandbags at enemy-controlled territory. I've stood on tanks that were blown out and this type of thing. What I do know, and I can tell you about Aleppo, is that Russia was extremely reluctant to get involved in combat in Syria. The war began in 2011 when the United States landed Central Intelligence operatives to begin coordinating with al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups. And we have been unwavering supporters of al-Qaeda since before the war formally began. We are supporters of al-Qaeda today, where they're bottled up in Idlib province. The CIA supplied them under secret Operation Timber Sycamore. We gave them all of their anti-tank weapons, all of their anti-air missiles. And al-Qaeda has always been our proxy force on the ground. They, together with ISIS, have carried out the mission of the United States, together with a great number of affiliates that really are kind of interchangeable. You have the Free Syrian Army. Soldiers move from ISIS to Al Qaeda to Free Syrian Army rather fluidly, and so we started that war. But the United States has a strategic policy of using proxies to engage in war, and our objective was overthrow the legitimate government of Syria. And in order to do that, we employed proxy soldiers who were the most vile of all terrorists. Something very similar is happening right now in Ukraine.